Hello, how's everybody doing? Good, good. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today. It's beautiful outside, and we really, really appreciate it. My name is Veda Azim. I am an interventionist with Columbus Violence Reduction by way of Office of Violence Prevention. I am blessed and honored to be a small part of a bigger and larger effort to make our city safe and move forward toward that goal that the mayor spoke about earlier today in becoming one of the safest, largest cities in this country. So, and I think that we can do it. So, again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to have some opening remarks from Deputy Chief Craig Conley. So if you would, just give a round of applause for Deputy Chief, please.
All right. Well, to start, good afternoon, everyone. Smiling faces out here, that's always a good thing. So, as was mentioned, my name is Craig Conley. I'm Deputy Chief of Staff for Mayor Andrew J. Ginther. And to start out, I wanted to give special thanks to the Office of Violence Prevention and your team for all the hard work you're putting in, as well as all of our community partners that is helping to take this ambition and make it a reality. With the Office of Violence Prevention now established and expanding rapidly, we're in a strong partnership with the dedication of the women and men of the Columbus Division of Police, along with the numerous committed city and community partners. We're advancing a comprehensive strategy to reduce violence and one that balances prevention, intervention, and enforcement. It's clear that the work so far has been on point to the fact that we, just last year alone in 2024, had a reduction of 17% in homicides, and that's worth applause. As well as, unfortunately, domestic violence has been on the rise. We're seeing numbers climb and go in the wrong direction. Especially since the pandemic, there's been a stark and sudden rise in domestic violence all over the world. This problem is further compounded by the presence and proliferation of guns in our city and other cities across America. Each year, millions of women report being threatened with a gun by an intimate partner. Evidence suggests that when a gun is present, the risk of death in domestic violence is 5 times greater. It is vital that we refer victims and their families to the proper resources for recovery and support, and it is vital that we also put forth and safely and proactively intervene to prevent these tragedies from even taking place. This work must begin and end with honesty and acceptance, eliminating the stigma surrounding this issue, and even more so, lifting up the stories and experiences of courageous survivors. The physical and emotional wounds touch so many in so many aspects of life, from home to school to the workplace. But we all do recognize that healing is a journey, right? It's a journey and a process, and it takes time. And the effects are unevenly endured across all of our society. Historically, underserved populations face greater rates of violence as well as additional barriers to safety and support. Domestic violence, no matter what its form, is just unacceptable, plain and simple, and it must be stopped. The Office of Violence Prevention is taking the lead on deploying new partnerships and resources with dedicated staff and programming to get the entire community involved. It is only through shared responsibility that we can create the lasting change that we seek. We all have a role to play: parents, faith leaders, prosecutors, judges, teachers, employers, all of us. And that's what we're doing here today. And that's what we'll continue to do to achieve the lasting peace our community deserves. We've done big things in this city, and we'll do it again. I'm excited to have all of you here And I'll leave you with a thought that's not in my notes. One of my favorite poems, to those of you that know me, is by Jesse Rittenhouse. It's called My Wage. It goes, I bargained for life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, one evening when I counted my scanty store, I found that life is a just employer. It will give you what you ask. But once you set the wages, then you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that whatever wage I would have asked of life, life would have willingly paid. You can take whatever moral of the story that you want from that, but the most important thing is we deserve better. We should not settle. We should strive and thrive in the work that we're looking to complete for all of our families and loved ones. Thank you.
One more time for our Deputy Chief, please. Thank you for that. So what we've been hearing a lot this morning, and the word that I've been hearing a lot is collaboration, and that's exactly what this is. There's so many people in this room right now, well, actually all of you in this room right now, who have contributed to all the success that we have seen and making the city safer. My sentiments is definitely the same of our deputy chiefs, but we can't settle for that, and I don't think we will. But you know, I just want to give a warm round of applause for all of you, everyone in here, one time, because all of you have contributed. So one more round of applause, please, for everybody that's in here. So at this time, I would like to introduce the Executive Director, Rena Shack of the Office of Violence Prevention. She's actually going to come up here and she's going to share and go a little bit more in depth about what the Office of Violence Prevention is and the spirit of collaboration that we've been able to achieve in this past year. So everybody, Director Rena Shack, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Let me try to adjust this for us short people. I am so excited to be here in this room with everybody. There are so many familiar faces, and it just makes my heart happy, honestly, because this work has been being done for years now in this city, and I have been privileged to be working in this field in some way or another for my entire career. And just looking across this room, it's such a great representation of people who I have met and worked with over the course of the last 15 years. And it just speaks to the passion and the work that everybody here does every single day. And so I had on the bottom of my list to make sure I made us all give ourselves a round of applause, but Veda took that. So we'll just, we will acknowledge that. But a big thank you to DC Conley for his remarks and for the mayor's continued support for the Office of Violence Prevention as we serve as the community public safety coordinating body for this administration and for this city. The theme for today is celebrating a year of collaboration. And like Veda said, none of this work can get done with one person, one organization, one department. It takes all of us, whether you are an on the ground, boots on the ground organizer, all the way up to an elected official doing the work in whatever capacity in which you serve. Everybody here is doing the hard work in your own way to make the differences that we talked about so far. Many of you in this room have been partners of OVPs in the last year and a half. Some of you are just learning about the work of our office, and some of you are newer partners. And so for all of you, welcome. I will try to keep my remarks brief as to the office and what we do, because I know that most of you have been collaborative with us in some way, but there's always something that we can learn. And so I just want to start by saying I am so extremely grateful for each and every one of you, and that includes every staff member for the Office of Violence Prevention and CVR, because without them, today would not have been possible. So I will let us do a round of applause for them as we begin. Look at that, I got the remote to work. So what is an Office of Violence Prevention? You may be wondering why have a year in review in the spring. It's because our office was actually appointed and it was officially announced in March of 2023. And so since then, we have been doing year in reviews in the springtime to reflect back on the work that's been done in the previous year. Many of you may know that in February of 2022, Mayor Ginther officially declared gun violence as a public health crisis in Columbus and asked our friends at the Department of Public Health to research what the city could do as a response. The Columbus Board of Health came back that fall with a recommendation to create an Office of Violence Prevention. And I worked alongside those folks at Public Health as well as alongside the folks at the mayor's office to figure out what is an Office of Violence Prevention and what could it do for our city. The Board of Health noted the importance of gun violence reduction, but that while Columbus was resource rich when it came to violence prevention and reduction resources, as a city, we weren't really sure whether or not our efforts were effective. We weren't sure what those measurables were. And we were seeing duplicative services, we were seeing gaps being left in some other avenues, and we were leaving some issues unaddressed. We all knew we wanted to work together and that everybody was so passionate about making a difference in our city, but we were wondering how to just harness that power under one umbrella so that we could do it in a more effective way to impact our residents in the best way possible. We knew silos existed in the work, and we knew that none of this really benefited the residents. And so in March of 2023, the Columbus Office of Violence Prevention was born. Trending nationwide, Columbus's OVP was the first, not only for Columbus, but for the state of Ohio, and only of about one at that time of 25 across the nation. Fast forward to today, there are about 100 offices of violence prevention across the country, and we're lucky enough to be involved in the National Offices of Violence Prevention Network, which harnesses that power of those of our colleagues across the country doing that work. And we're able to learn and we're able to bring different strategies here to Columbus to make sure that we are doing our work in the most evidence-based and data-driven way possible to battle the gun violence epidemic, not only in this city, but in this country as a whole. So OVPs, they take on evidence-based, data-driven practices focused on those at the highest risk of gun violence. So that's either individuals who are at the highest risk of being shot or being shooters themselves, as well as taking on all of those preventative measures that we all know so well. They also serve as a bridge and a convener between the government, between the community, and between our wonderful CBOs. While building, the years of 2023 and 2024 were spent focused on intentional and sustained community engagement sessions because we needed to learn what our community needed to see from our OVP. I always say that our work can't be for the city if it is not of the city. And that is what guides the work that this office does, because we recognize that the work that we do hand in hand with all of you is to change this city for the better. We spoke to over 1,000 residents, we held over 50 listening and engagement events, and we brought folks together who have dedicated their lives to violence reduction in our city. Over the last year, this led us to set our focus on a few key areas as our body of work has developed. That being the creation of Columbus's first ever coordinated community violence intervention ecosystem, the expansion of our community violence reduction, which is our city's dedicated group violence reduction strategy, awareness efforts around gun and group violence, which includes policy, prevention education and resource provision, domestic violence supports, and community engagement opportunities. It wouldn't be a year in review if we didn't talk a little bit about the financials, so we'll make sure to go over this quickly. But last year, our overall operating budget was $4.5 million, and as you can see below, we really intentionally wanted to make sure that over 75% of our revenue and our budget was dispersed in direct services to our community. So that's either given out to CBOs and other organizations who are doing the work, or in our direct provisioning through CVR. And now I'm going to hand it over to our Deputy Director, Dr. Joanne Lunsford, to talk to you a little bit more about the work.
Thank you, Director, and hello, everyone. So glad you could join us today. We are so excited to share and collaborate and learn together. So, as Director says, community engagement. We cannot do community work without being with the community. Community is so important, and so with our engagement, we were able to do a gun buyback where we were able to take 234 firearms off of the streets of Columbus. That was 67 handguns, 35 shotguns, 38 rifles, and 96 assault rifles. Okay, so I don't think y'all heard me. We were able to take 234 firearms off of the streets of Columbus where they did not unintentionally get in the hands of someone younger or someone else that could either inflict self-harm or harm to others. And so with the community engagement, when we're talking about having community circles, being able to talk with everyone so that they are able to inform the work we do. We had a must, should, could, won't. We finished up our must, should, could, won't series. That's when we asked the community, what must OVP do? What should OVP do? Or what could OVP do? And even more importantly, what won't OVP do when trying to coordinate violence prevention services? What do you need to see and what do you not need to see? We need to see community engagement. We don't need to see discrimination of any kind of way. And so being able to talk with that's able to inform our strategic plan. We've had the Jonesville exercise created by our very own OVP Community Resource Coordinator, Siobhan Jones, where we were able to take out to individuals as young as 5 years old, all the way up to 18 years old throughout the city. We were able to ask them, what kind of things do you need in the neighborhood to feel safe? And they told us things like police and fire, but they also told us things like, we need laundromats, we need hospitals, we need schools, we need green space, so that we're able to come out and play and we're able to feel safe and we're able to exert all that energy so that we can use some more for the positive purpose. We also had a safe neighborhood exercise where we had a board where it talks about what does a safe community look like for you? What does a safe neighborhood look for you? And residents from the young all the way to the elderly were able to say, this is what it looks like for us. Whether it looks like trash collection on a regular basis, whether it looks like police stations in our neighborhood, all those kind of things that they were able to say, this is what we need to feel safe. And then we were also able to have spring and winter break activities. In the spring, we were able to open up some of the community, I want to make sure, because I know I don't want Director Reese to tell me that I'm wrong. We were able to open up the community centers. I know oftentimes we say the rec centers, but we were able to come into some of the community centers and have them open for extended time for community members to come in and have a safe place to do things like arts and crafts, basketball competition, all the different, and we have resource tables there. And one of the best things about that spring series was it was open when schools were out and parents had somewhere to send their child safe. And one of the things that really stuck out, one of the memories I have, is a family that came, and it was the cousins and the sisters, and they were all together, and no one wanted to be bothered with the little 5-year-old cousin sister. They were like, oh my gosh, we want to go to the basketball, we want to do this. And she didn't want to do any of that. And everybody in here understands that, when it's like you got to be stuck with the young one. But they were able to take her to the arts and crafts that she wants to go to and leave her there with safe staff to watch over her. And she was able to have fun and do all things she wanted. And the cousins and the older sister was able to go do the things that they want. And so that's part of the feedback that we received to be able to have that. We also did winter break activities at the skate rinks where we were able to have families come, not just the children, but the families. And they were able to have skating. They were have all the amenities in the skating rink, and all of this information that we were able to take back was then able to inform our strategic plan for the city of Columbus. Oh, I guess I should have learned how to do this. Oh, thank you. So, and as many of you know, if you've seen the State of the City, Mayor Ginther has expressed the three-prong approach for the domestic violence strategy that the City of Columbus has instituted through the Office of Violence Prevention. And that is research, prevention, and intervention. And with that, we were able to establish a dedicated DV liaison in the Office of Violence Prevention. Again, Ms. Siobhan Jones. When you're bad, right? And so we were able to have a dedicated liaison that is able to work with ODVN, working with Choices, working with LSS, working with all the different domestic violence entities in the city so that we can understand the problem. We were able to get a researcher to be able to study the data and the research from CPD and other sources so that we can see what neighborhoods should be prioritized when it comes to services. How do we spread the services out to where they are needed? Is there disproportionality in the impact of DV, and how do we address that? And so being able to have fiscal sponsorship in the calendar year 2024, we were able to give $1 million to LSS Choices so that we can make sure that there's a safe place for those who may be, for a safe place that may be a safe place for those who are trying to leave their homes into a place where they can have everything, the services that they need. For youth services, we were able to give out $850,000 in spring grants, and many of you here were able to be recipients of that, right? We know idle time. Sometimes kids get into some stuff they don't need to get into. And when the schools is closed, sometimes we got some idle time. So being able to give CBOs the money to have services and programs available to reduce that idle time can be very, very impactful. We were also able to give $475,000 in summer funding, which we're very so proud of. Some of you in this room were also recipients of that money to be able to add programming during the summer when sometimes youth need a little bit of extra time and stuff to do. And so with that, we're able to enhance our community violence intervention ecosystem that Director talked about earlier by having convenings where all the different violence prevention providers from the city, as well as receiving significant city funds, are able to come together and be able to share, this is what we're doing, this is what we're not doing that works. We're able to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And we're able to, when we had our first convening and we had everyone there, people walked in and not everybody was so receptive to each other because we just hadn't been working together. But by the end of that convening, by the second convening, it was like family was in a room together. And we were learning, what lane do you belong in? And how do you shine in that lane? And how do we pass off referrals? And how do we work together for the betterment of the city? And so then we were able to have monthly ecosystem management meetings. And we are able to have collaborations for community events and safe passages so that we are able to work together. One of the ways we worked together was when we got a phone call from a problem on the south side of Columbus. South High School was having some problems with dismissal and safe passage. We were able to convene a group together and we were able to stop the community stores from even considering closing during those hours because it was such a disturbance to the neighborhood that not only were they able to stay open, but during those 2 weeks that we had that safe passage together in the collaboration, there were no issues of violence. So that's a great thing. And we are able to expand, to figure out how do we expand in the future from that. And so one of the best things about our investments is that we are able to increase participant service delivery. We are able to figure out how to get to those who need the help most, that might be most likely to shoot or be shot. And how do we interact with so that we can not only empower them to make a different decision in life, but help others. And one of the ways we do that is through the Columbus Violence Reduction Program. And so I would like to invite our CVR intervention manager, Sean Smith, to the podium so he can tell you a little bit more about that program.
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't do well standing behind podiums. I like to kind of move around, but I'm gonna try my best here today. All right, so just to give you guys an idea, some of you in the room, I see a lot of familiar faces. So some people are already familiar with what CVR is. But basically, CVR was founded out of a group violence intervention model, and you'll hear the three-pronged approach thing kind of run true throughout the rest of the day. But we also operate from a three-pronged approach, which involves community members, support and outreach, which are like social service agencies, businesses, organizations who are there to kind of offer support to the guys that we work with, and then also law enforcement. And the reason that law enforcement is involved is because with their newly established or reestablished gang unit, they're out working and dealing with people who are involved in group or gang violence. And those who are not directly being indicted but are on the outside or at risk of being the next victim or perpetrator, they get referred to us for some of the services and work that we do. So what that looks like is one of the ways in which we engage is called a custom notification. And the reason it's called a custom notification is because we customize that notification to that individual that we're going to talk to. So if that person is comfortable at their house, if they're comfortable at a park, if they're comfortable at a church, we'll meet them where they're at and have that conversation of, hey, we want to kind of be here to support you, right? Law enforcement's message is very strong in that we need the violence to stop, but instead of coming to arrest you, we want to offer you some support and services. Here are the people who can help you with that. We come into the picture and say, we want to make sure that this is your last negative interaction with law enforcement. So what can we do to kind of help you and support you through that? A lot of times you kind of see on the boards out there, one of the first things out of their mouths is, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. Because ultimately that's the first thing we think is money, right? But through our intervention work, we've grown to find that sometimes they don't have the communication skills or the understanding of how to be addressed or have your behavior corrected by your supervisor, right? So some of the little things that we kind of gloss over and just say, just get them a job, just get them a job. They don't have those little skills to really kind of navigate and get them through. And that's why I'm really appreciative of our intervention staff. A couple of them are in the room today. And then the rest of our support staff, and making sure that our participants are provided with as much support as possible. The other form in which we get participants is called a call-in session. I know a couple of people in the room have been to those. A number of people in the room have been to those. But if you haven't, up to this point, they've been at different churches across the city. And what that looks like is you invite the community out to try to provide some support to these individuals. And more than likely, they're on some form of probation or parole. So we have the support of the courts to encourage them to attend. And when they come, they'll receive a panel kind of presentation of the same message, right? So you'll have somebody from either the mayor's office or Office of Violence Prevention. You'll have the chief of police or assistant chief of police, first assistant chief of police. You'll have a federal prosecutor, county prosecutor, the coroner, or the last one we had a trauma surgeon. They all kind of present on, if you continue down this life of violence, these are some of the things that'll come your way, right? On the other end, I'll speak about what CVR is and what services we can offer. And then we also let them know that the services that we have to offer are not only for you, but for those that you love and those who you're trying to support too. Because a lot of times the guys that we're dealing with, they're not in the streets because they want to be there. They're in the streets because they feel like they have to be. They don't know another way. They have people that they have to support. I have a 3-year-old who needs food and clothes and diapers and whatever else may be. So if we can come in and kind of offer some support to alleviate that stress, maybe that'll give you time to focus on the things that can set you in the right path. We'll also have a mother who has lost their child to violence, and they speak from that perspective. A voice of redemption, somebody who has lived that lifestyle, came out and turned it around. I think our first voice of redemption was Dana Brock. I've seen him in the room earlier. Yep. And then we'll end it on a voice of aspiration. So somebody just encouraging them, trying to leave them on a positive note. From there, we'll all go and eat together, try to break bread together, and try to just, establish relationship and connection as much as we can. So as you'll see on the board here, over the past year, we've had over 80 people that we've come in contact with. About 48% of those are still safe, alive, and free. And those are our big marks, keeping them safe, alive, and out of prison. We did transition to OVP as of last June, and one of the bigger things that came out of that transition, which I really appreciate, is that our intervention staff, who would often come in under contract positions, are now offered city positions with benefits, great pay. And I just want to highlight that because that's really inspiring to the next generation. So as I'm sitting at somebody's house and talking to them through a custom notification, or sitting in the crowd and talking to them through a call-in session. I let them know that I would like you to be the next, Veda or Gabby or Todd. You can do the same thing, and who better to hear from than somebody who's been in that position and kind of turned their life around. So that's it. That's all I got.
If we can just give one more round of applause to the CVR team, because the work they do is nothing short of incredible. So they deserve all of the applause here. Thank you, Sean. So aside from all of the wonderful partnerships that OVP has been able to build through in this room and those who couldn't make it today, we wanted to really highlight our partnership with two key organizations who have helped totally transform our work in 2024, and we plan to continue working with them in 2025. And these partners are the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. You hear us talking about them a lot. We call them NICJR or Nick Jr. When we first started saying Nick Jr., I was transformed to my past, and so I'll just say NICJR. But then also the Ohio State University's Center for Hopes. So the OVP began contracting with NICJR for technical assistance and foundational guidance in 2024. They're the parent agency for the national OVP network that I spoke about earlier, and they've paved the path as far as work for OVPs and CVI work, which is community violence intervention work, go across the country. Not only did we have monthly on-site visits from the NICJR team, but we benefited from biweekly training and technical assistance sessions that really helped advise us and inform our work as to how we could do our work based on best practices across the country, and frankly, set our own path and pave our own way when it comes to comparisons. And I will tell you that I just spent the last week, this is an aside, in Oakland, California at NICJR's Violence Reduction Management Institute. And it's hard when you're doing this work, and I know you all know this. When you're doing this work, it feels like it can be really lonely. It can be isolating. We're all feeling like very often we're fighting uphill battles to reach these goals. But being able to be in a room of violence reduction managers that are doing this work across the country, they were floored at the amount of work that Columbus has done together in just the last few years alone. I was able to sing stories, and wins from everybody in this room and share how we work together and share the things that we've been able to accomplish. And cities from across the country were just, the questions they had were like, how are you guys doing this as a group together? And really, it just speaks to the passion that we all have. And so that wasn't written in here, but I felt the need to share it. It was on my heart because it really just speaks to everybody here and the work that you wake up to do every single day. So this partnership, in addition to that foundational guidance and that strategy building, allowed us to go ahead and create Columbus's first CVI ecosystem. If you were able to visit the exhibit room, you saw a board that explains exactly what that is. Currently, that ecosystem consists of 11 entities in total, and that includes city-run programs and initiatives, both from the OVP, but from our friends over at the Recreation and Parks Department, as well as Columbus Public Health. It also includes identified city-funded organizations that are doing this work in the violence prevention and intervention space. The OVP worked all year alongside all of these individuals to serve as the convener for these entities in order to create a higher rate of collaboration within the ecosystem to drive down violence. And I think you can see it in some of the exhibits out in the exhibit room is just how well coordinated this city has become with all of these entities. And not only are we just working with those 11 entities, but we're constantly looking to partner with other organizations who are doing the work to bring them into that ecosystem. So that when our CVR folks have individuals who have a friend or a family member that might not fit the criteria there, but still need services, we can refer them to some of our other agency partners. Or if there's individuals who are justice involved in probation or through the public defender's office or the prosecutor's office, we can bring those individuals in and refer them elsewhere for the services they need and make sure that everybody's getting what they need from the people in this room who are doing the work. So the work was memorialized in that OVP landscape analysis that you all should have access to a copy of. There's plenty in the other room. But what that does is it dives deep into the existence and the rate of gun violence here in Columbus, as well as to the current CVI service providers that are identified within that ecosystem. It includes maps, it includes statistics, an overview of how the ecosystem can work together and play on all of our strengths for the betterment of Columbus. In addition, we released with NICJR the cost of gun violence analysis in November. Again, there's plenty of copies over there for those of you who are interested and haven't been able to grab a copy. But this report was created by NICJR with our assistance, and it details the direct and indirect costs to our system, so taxpayer dollars, that are associated with homicides and non-fatal shootings here in Columbus. This data, frankly, was a bombshell release of information, not only for us, but for most of our partners who read it. And I think that's saying a lot because this is the work that we do every day. So for us to be able to take a look at that report and really be frankly surprised at its findings, I think speaks volumes to the level of information and detail that's included in that report. But it reflects a conservative estimate that for a single victim, single suspect homicide here in the city of Columbus, there's a $2.1 million taxpayer cost associated with that. And then a single victim, single suspect, non-fatal shooting is approximately $738,000 for a systems cost. Now, when we first did the report, I felt some kind of way because I don't love associating a number with a life lost, right? Because there's just so much more that goes into a non-fatal shooting or a homicide that can never be calculated. But part of the work of an OVP is to work in ways that are data informed. And so doing reports like this is part of our job so that we can assist in advocating in the work that everybody in this room is doing. Because if we can go to partners both on the local, state, national level and arm them with the information that's in reports like this, assisted by our partners, then I think we can just level up across the board. And so we're happy to be able to do that work and to release reports like this. Our work with NICJR has frankly been crucial to the success of our office, and it's allowed us to develop deep relationships with national leaders from across the country, like I said, who are really at the forefront of this work. But a second relationship that we'd like to highlight today is our partnership with the Center for Hope's team from The Ohio State University. One of our charges that the mayor gave us when creating our office was to create a uniform measurement and analysis system for all of the organizations in Columbus that are doing this work and receiving funding from the city. So the dynamic team from OSU spent a large portion of 2024 following all of our ecosystem members around through site visits and data review in order to assist the OVP in the creation of a uniform data collection and reporting system, which will be a first for the city's violence reduction efforts. So at this time, I'd like to invite up some of the members of the Hopes team to just give you a brief and firsthand insight into the work that they're taking alongside our ecosystem.
Is this her phone? Rena, is this your phone? No. Okay. So it is 1:11 right now, by the way. Auspicious time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Naveen Qureshi, and I'm a research analyst at the Center for Health Outcomes and Policy Evaluation Studies, or the Center for HOPES for short. We're really excited to introduce ourselves today and give you an update on our collaboration with OVP.
The green button.
There we go. First, I'm going to just briefly chat about the Center for Hopes for anyone who here who may not have partnered with us yet. So we're a university center at The Ohio State University, and we're housed under the College of Public Health. Our mission is to support community health through rigorous and innovative policy research and evaluation. So essentially, the work that we do really focuses on ensuring communities have equal access to care and resources. We do this by working on various public health research and evaluation projects, and our project partners range from community-based organizations to state and federal organizations. So in our work, our partners are always included in the development, design, and implementation and evaluation of our projects. And then whenever possible, we really try to include community members in the work that we do. We find that it's important that they help create the interventions that are intended for them and for them to benefit from. We also encourage and support sustainability efforts with our partners. We think it's really important for the work to thrive beyond just a grant or a contract cycle. And then our partnership with OVP. So the OVP contracted our center to develop a data sharing project for the Columbus Community Violence Intervention, or CVI, ecosystem programs. It was identified that there was a need for data collection and data-informed decision-making for the CVI ecosystem programs in our city to share as an ecosystem. So the Center for Hopes and our community, and our university partners are assisting with developing and testing this coordinated approach to data sharing for the CVI ecosystem programs. Real quickly, from the Center for Hopes, we have several project members who are working on this project, and then we've also partnered with additional personnel from our university. So Doctors Maurice Stevens, Jason Reese, and Terrence Hinton are working on the project as scientific advisors. So what they're really able to do is to provide us with project advice based on their own professional areas of expertise and any available resources that they have. With that,
I'll jump
it's
in.
now my great pleasure to pass the remainder of the presentation to Dr. Stevens.
Good afternoon, y'all. Can you hear me okay? All right. I am so happy to be here. This is amazing. All alone. Good.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
you're good. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm good. I'm good. And it's just amazing to see you all. One of the things that has been so powerful in the work that we've been doing so far is getting around to all of the members of the ecosystem and just seeing the amazing work and the amazing dedication that people have to do this incredibly difficult work. It's on so many levels, so challenging. So it's just, I'm actually very proud to be able to be involved in the work. So my name is Maurice Stevens. I'm a professor at Ohio State. I've been here for about 24 years or so. I'm also Associate Dean for Engagement in the College of Arts and Sciences, which is how I get to be partnering with Hopes in this. We've done work in the past together in various spaces. And I'm just going to give you a kind of brief overview of what we've been doing at kind of a high level. We're working on this project, which is basically a pilot, to learn how to best approach data sharing in the CVI system. So we've heard a lot about the work that folks are doing in different spaces, but we really want to find out, like, how are folks on the ground actually collecting information and then turning that information into data and then doing things with that data that will make sense for them, but also how to share that data with each other. And that's one of the challenge points. So the goals for us include things like creating and testing methods for collecting and sharing data on the CVI program activities, developing methods that are meaningful, that are easy to use, that are collaborative, and that are evidence-informed, and providing the Columbus OVP and the CVI ecosystem with information about how they might best approach data sharing in the ecosystem. And it's really our hope that, that what we'll learn will support the CVI ecosystem programs and OVP in collaborative decision-making and determining of next steps as we go forward. And it's also a powerful thing that's been emerging, that folks want to collaboratively determine next steps. So in addition to kind of thinking about quality improvement and holistic approaches to enhancing community safety in Columbus, we want to think about how that data gets shared in the ecosystem programs so it'll be used towards data-driven decision-making. We believe that setting up a way for the ecosystems to regularly convene and share the data can help activate the ecosystem's capacity and kind of collective power to gather, to share, and to act upon information that it's collecting in efficient ways, but also effective ways to ensure collaboration and build trust. We recently wrapped up our first phase of the pilot. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've kind of accomplished in the recent months. In mid-November, I think it was, of last year, we launched a survey for the 14 ecosystem partners that are participating in the project. The survey was used to gather some very kind of preliminary information about the programs, including their populations that they're working with, their service areas, the makeup of their staff, the personnel, the relationships between the two, the caseload sizes, and also their current data collecting efforts. At the end of November, we began conducting virtual, basically there were 60-minute interviews with the staff at the programs. Usually there was one leadership member and one staff member for each program in the interviews. And the purpose was really to start building relationship between us and them, but also between them and each other, and to learn more about their experiences with data collection and how the project team could best support those programs going forward. What's working? What are you doing? What do you think you need? What would support you as you move forward? Then at the end of January, we started program tours. These were usually 2 to 4 hours or so when we would be on site, shadowing folks, seeing what they were doing, noticing like, oh, here's how you're taking information, here's where you're putting, asking questions, what is your system, what systems are you using, what are the pain points, what are the affordances, that kind of thing. And we asked questions that were very specific about each program's unique data collection practices and their capacity. During the visits, we also, as I said, emphasized building relationships with the really amazing staff who are working tirelessly there. So in general, during the first phase of the project, we focused on gathering information about how CVI programs are currently collecting their own data in the field, and then how they're using that data at this time, and what kind of data they feel would be most meaningful, and where they saw gaps. Like, hey, we'd really like to know X, but we don't get that information, or we don't have a way to get it. Let's think about that as we start designing a process. I don't know if I'm behind on my slides. So let's see. So in phase 1 of the project, we actually feel like it's been really successful. We found that and I should say also, one expectation that I had going into it was that folks were going to be suspicious or reticent or nervous about either the collection of data or the fact that somebody wanted to come in and say, what are you doing with that data? That's what I thought. Maybe it was a little cynical, but what we found was, in fact, folks were very favorable and very interested in talking about data gathering and how it's important. We found that they viewed it positively. Many of the programs reported that they see and understand the value of data collection, and many stated that they think data collection is important. None of the programs we interviewed indicated that they had negative opinions about either gathering data or sharing that information. In fact, they consistently expressed excitement and appreciation that the efforts being made, that the city's interested in it, and also shared optimism about the benefits to collection and working collaboratively with the city. So we found this openness to collaboration and interest in collective effort very encouraging, and feel like it really bodes well for what will end up being the next phases of the process, especially if we're really careful about it and do it with intention. And I'll say too, although the folks who are working in these programs are super busy, it was often very difficult to even arrange times to be there, or when we were there, we had to be prepared to kind of step back when things were happening in the moment. But even though that was the case and that they were giving us really serious time and attention as a kind of gift of their energy, they nevertheless really appreciated the collaboration with them and our interest in their services. And they also appreciated that we were prioritizing the inclusion of their voice, because oftentimes it can feel like somebody's sort of saying what you should do. So they felt that they were responsive to that. And they also really appreciated the time that we were taking to kind of collect information about what they were doing and their direct feedback. We also found that, maybe this isn't surprising because they're part of an ecosystem, but everybody, all 14 programs were eager to be involved in the surveys and the interviews and the program tours. Everyone participated. And we also found that all 14 programs, all of the programs are collecting data already. So they understand the importance and feel like it's important, and they're also already doing it. The challenge is that everybody's doing it in different ways, because they're having to do it based on the kind of services they provide and in the moment, with what they're encountering. But we think that this is going to provide a really strong foundation for integrating the methods as we start to understand what they are. And help them start sharing information with each other so the full capacity of the ecosystem can start to emerge. So presently, the team at Ohio State is working on analyzing the data that we collected from the ecosystem programs via the surveys, the interviews, and the program tours. The information and direct feedback that we got from the ecosystem programs are going to help us develop some recommendations. This is sort of what we're working on things now for data measurements that the ecosystem can collaboratively collect in a shared way across the different programs. And we're still working through developing those recommendations, but some of the examples of measurements will probably include things like the number of clients or the participants served, numbers of resources handed out, number of successful program graduations, that level of kind of content, but also process information. So once we develop the methods, what'll happen next is that we're going to train the programs on data collection methods that are shared and the measures that will be developed for the pilot. During the pilot, our team is going to be available to support folks with technical assistance and supporting in other ways the ecosystem programs, while the programs themselves are collecting data and reporting their data up and out on a monthly basis for secondary analysis. So as a result, high-level analytics of the data will be shared back with the ecosystem on a regular basis so that the ecosystem can use the data to collaborate on their data-driven kind of decision-making together by having some visibility about what's happening in other spaces and where the gaps are and where the strengths are synergizing. So I'll close quickly by saying that we're excited about supporting the context of community safety that amplifies care. And something we find powerful about activating the CVI ecosystem's capacity to gather, share, and act on its information is that it is holistic. It's a complex system. It reinforces the sense of trust and collaboration between community members and the city in ways that will contribute to kind of an emergent increased safety. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for that very informative presentation. We're looking forward to next steps and how it helps to enhance Columbus's violence prevention in the city. So, as you can see in the pictures here, OVP has grown. Whether it was myself and Rena, whether it was 8 people for OVP, or whether it was the explosion of 21 full-time staff and 4 contract staff too, OVP and CVR, we have grown. But the one thing that has remained the same is our passion, our love for what we do. our acknowledgement of the important work we have ahead of us and that we're doing, and our true commitment to it. That has never faltered and it never will. Everyone who joins the team has a heart for service in a specific capacity and is willing to do what it takes to get the job done. Because we have a mission. Our mission is to empower residents to embrace safety and well-being by strategically reducing violence through a collaborative, community-driven public health lens. And we will continue to do that because the city of Columbus deserves nothing less. And so we have guiding principles that helps us work together so that we're safer together in the 614. We believe in equity. Every life matters, and everyone deserves to live in a safe neighborhood. OVP believes in the foundation, knowing that we have to address systemic issues in order to appropriately address violence prevention in the city. OVP believes in community. The community comes first, always. OVP believes in collaboration because everyone has a role in improving public safety in our city. OVP believes in evidence. Our work is informed by data and best practices. And we understand that it has to be for it to actually be effective and for it to be most productive for our city. OVP believes in investment because we know there is a need for proper distribution of resources in order for violence prevention initiatives to provide impactful and measurable results. And so we use our mission, our passion, our drive, our guiding principles to show us our way as we continue to reduce violence in the city of Columbus in a collaborative effort. And so, Director, if you can come tell us a little bit more.
Okay, I promise I'm closing us out. So we got 2 more slides. Thank you for those of you who are sticking with us. We're going to be close to time. Okay, so Safer Together 614 is our campaign, shall we say it, for what it means for all of us to be doing this work together and how we're guiding the work of OVP in light of that. And so what we have done is the last year, we've done a lot of really hard, intensive work at again, what does Safer Together mean for us for the betterment of 614? And so what you see behind me are 3 different pillars that we are carrying with us in our work into the future. The first pillar is coordinating safety support services. And I'm not going to read every single one of these because you all can go ahead and read those, but the first pillar is really about those direct services to our community. So evolving the group violence intervention, that's first on that list because that is what's going to be the most impactful at immediately reducing violence here in our city. And then you go down that pillar, you see things like continuing to develop the CVI ecosystem, victim services, working with returning citizens, and enhancing youth services. The second pillar that we found kept coming up over and over again in our feedback sessions with community is for us to continue engaging in advocacy and program innovation on behalf of the violence reduction field. So that looks like the programmatic evaluations that OSU just talked about, continuing to implement grant-making programs to support our local CBOs, providing training and technical assistance for those in the ecosystem, and engaging in policy and development and advocacy across the local, state, and federal levels. Now, that third pillar is fostering collaboration and coordination, which I think is pretty evident that it's the theme of our work, is that collaboration and that coordination to continue to expand community relationships, engage stakeholder groups, and coordinate interagency partnerships. Okay, so as you can see, our work is so much more than what I think people think on the surface, right? We're not just direct service providers. We're not just that air traffic controller, like I like to use as a visual, but we're engaging in policy discussions to change the landscape of violence reduction on all levels. At the same time, we're convening and partnering daily with all of you. We're expanding direct services to our residents through financial supports, prevention education, and real-time interventions. We're collaborating with academic institutions and overhauling data practices while working together to create new systems that'll lead us into the future. And all of this is guided by those intentional interactions that we support and create with and for our residents. From the unhoused to the faith community to those who are incarcerated or returning from prison and beyond. If you work, live, worship, and play in Columbus, you are who we are doing this work for. While some of this work remains longstanding, what you have OVP's commitment today is that you can expect us for the remainder of 2025 to invest nearly $4 million from our office in the following areas that you see behind me on the screens. Our commitment to the community breaks down into expanding the group violence reduction strategy to include life coaching for our community members at the highest risk of gun violence. Our promise is that this will be a sustained initiative that provides professionals to walk alongside our CVR participants as they try to change their lives for the better. So going beyond just that crisis intervention, that emergency need meeting, but more of a long-term approach with trained professionals who are able to reach out to those in their time of need, whether it's 1 week after they engage, whether it's 1 month, 6 months, all the way up to 12 and 18 months, because safe, alive, and out of prison means so much more. We want to make sure that you're successful when you're safe, alive, and out of prison. And to do that, we need to expand the offerings that we're providing to our participants. And so that's one of the biggest promises to our community rolling into 2025. It also means rolling out the domestic violence 3-pronged approach that you learned about in the other room. So these community conversations that we talked about are going to be coming to every side of our city with a minimum commitment from the OVP of at least 30 conversations between now and the remainder of the year. So if any of you want to host one, you let us know and we'll come to you and host a conversation. It also means purposefully investing financial support for CBOs because we recognize that CBOs are the ones on the ground doing the work. And so it's important for us to financially support that work that we know is being done. We also are going to launch the Safer Together violence prevention and education campaign in schools. So if you didn't get a chance to go in the other room and use your phone to make those 2 big posters come to life, please do, because that'll give you a brief look into what that campaign is going to look like. We're going to be at festivals, we're going to be at schools, we're going to be at community engagements for the remainder of the year, talking to young people about violence prevention. What you'll see in us interacting in that Safer Together campaign is reminding our young people what everybody in this room already knows, that they are valued, they are deserving, and they're capable of so much more than a life of violence. And so we want to help them envision themselves in the future that goes beyond what some of them only know. And so aside from those promises and all the information that you heard today, we just want to end with another giant thank you. None of this work would be possible without any of you in this room. Like Joanne said, 1.5 years ago, it was just she and I kind of imagining what this work would look like. And I'm not a crier, you can ask my staff, but sitting at the table and being able to watch, especially the work that's taken place in the last year, kind of brought me close to tears, which is it's a lot. And they're laughing because they know. But the collaboration, the heart, the passion that is evidenced by everyone in this room and everybody who has worked with us and alongside us, and that includes our team through which we couldn't do anything without them. A heartfelt thank you goes out to each and every one of you because you guys are changing lives every single day in this city, and we're honored and we're blessed to be doing the work alongside you. So thank you. That's the conclusion of our program. We'll stick around. Feel free to go take some more of those reports and pick our brains about those exhibits. And other than that, you're free to go.